Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for coming back from lunch. I appreciate not only is it nice outside, there's some stiff competition at this time of day as well. So, as you can see, there should have been two of us. Unfortunately, Carl was unable to travel. I'm sure he's going to watch this recording at some point, so I hope he does. I hope he feels I've done it justice. As you'll have seen in all the talks so far, there's a QR code there for feedback. If it's good feedback, leave it against me. If it's poor, please leave it against Carl. That'd be great. Thank you. So this presentation's offered as a performance story. So that doesn't mean I'm going to do it through the medium of interpretive dance, which is perhaps what this studio is more used to. But it's a narrative technique blending factual reporting with lived experience, and that's to try and surface the dynamics of change and trust, which is something that hopefully will be a thread that you'll see throughout this. The story is also an attempt to reassemble the social within the university, within the team that I work with, and that I'm fortunate to lead. In our context, Agile is not just a methodology, but it's a device for tracing and reconfiguring relationships. We talk a lot about mindset, and I've heard quite a few other speakers talk about that over the last couple of days. And it's also an effort to restore agency and sense-making in what is, and I'll illustrate, a complex organisational landscape. But before I get on to that, I can move the slides on, that'd be a good start, wouldn't it? I've got a question for you. I'm going to talk to you about the University of Nottingham, just place this in some context, but open to the floor. What do you think of when you hear the words university? We're in a university now, so what do you think of? Redundancies. Unfortunately, very, very present at the moment, including at our institution. So yes. Anything else? Learning, thank you. Knowledge, education, memories, debt, students, yeah, they're quite important in universities, yep. Anything else? Conferences. Loads of stuff, isn't there? There is loads of stuff. And all of your answers are correct. And more. So somewhere like the University of Nottingham is really a medium-sized town. If all of us who work there, study there, actually lived on campus and we brought it here, it would be the largest conurbation in the county. That gives you a sense of scale. And the university delivers most of the things that a medium-sized town delivers to its community. It also provides things that towns don't do, such as front and back office digital technology. So how many of you actually work in a regulated industry? Anybody here in what you consider? I can see a couple of hands. I'm looking into the lights here, so I can see a couple of hands. We're a regulated industry too. At the last count, 160 plus regulators that the university has to comply with. So huge, complex burden of compliance, as well as all the good things that the university has to do. It's a unique production environment. It's one of probably the only environments where an executive instruction will be received by a large body of the workforce as being useful advice. If Carl was here, he'd be telling you about his previous life as an academic and the working assumption that stuff just happens, the university just works, it delivers for staff and students. Since crossing into what we call professional services, he's come to realise that there's an awful lot of things going on under the surface that actually deliver all of those services. You'll be familiar with the metaphor of the swan swimming serenely while the feet are going like mad. We don't do swans, we have a lot of geese. You'll see geese feature later on. But it's a very common theme within universities. I've had 4 placement students work with me previously at another institution who were astonished at what was happening behind the scenes that as students they just took for granted. So it's a very complex environment. We all like metrics, so I thought I'd share a few here. We don't like league tables. Generally, they actually make us compete with our peers who traditionally we collaborate with, but actually the league tables force us into competition. Just a little aside for you. Top 100 in the world, okay, that's great. What that actually really means is that you'll have understood or heard the narrative about falling numbers of international students in the UK. In some parts of the world, if you're not studying at a top 100 university, or you're not going to study there, you will not be funded. And in other parts of the world, you will not get a job in certain cities or industries if you haven't been to a top 100 university. So it has real life implications. These league tables are incredibly powerful, so we have to pay them a lot of notice. What we're really proud of, though, is our Gold Award for Hedgehog Friendly Campus. And thank you. Yeah, we've got large, very green, beautiful campuses, as this is. And also, we're a big place that delivers globally changing research, such as being the birthplace of MRI. As you can probably guess, even though I'm not an academic, I'm hugely proud to be part of the higher education sector and all that we do for our society. So there you are, that's the University of Nottingham. Large numbers of students, large numbers of staff, 3 campuses, proper campuses, not just offices in tower blocks. Oops. Not just offices in tower blocks. These are genuine campuses, and you can see that the Trent building in Nottingham has been replicated in local architecture in China and Malaysia. So, we're a large, complex organisation spread across 3 countries, 2 continents. And when it comes to replacing the in-house built student record system, it's a bit of a doddle, isn't it? Not really. So this was our previous Vice-Chancellor very publicly stating in 2019 what her thoughts were after the implementation project of our new student record system. Very public apology. You can go and find that on the internet now. The scars still run deep. I have the last Project Transform office sign in my desk drawer. I get it out every now and again just to remind people what happened. So I'm going to talk you through briefly some of that and then take you up to the present day. So, bit of a timeline. This was the 3rd, possibly 4th attempt at implementing a new student information system or student record system, student management system, whatever you would like to call it. So that timeline you can see there. I can point. Look, ooh, there we are. So, admissions in the UK went live in 2016. Student records went live in China and Malaysia in 2017. Before we even got there, whoops. Oop, that's not good. I've inadvertently pressed something, clearly. I think, has my flipper done it? There. Right, no, it's me, I think. I think I inadvertently pressed the button. Right, I'll stop waving with the pointer. So, between those 2 go-lives, we had a NASDAQ-listed implementation partner who went out of business. So people came into work one morning to find their American colleagues who some were working on site, some were working in the States, were no longer employed. So it was a really difficult implementation. Infosys, the Indian implementer, joined the university in 2017 and pushed the system live, got it live, and UK student records went live in 2018. So it was already long and drawn out by that point in time. I'll talk about the other couple of things in a moment. There was a major restructure within the university without the accompanying technology because the technology was lagging. So there were 450 roles approximately from across the university that was centralised into a central student services with all of the challenges that brings and the change resistance that brings, and they weren't supported by a new student record system. There was a Bring Out Your Dead exercise, lovely title, at some point in 2016, 2017, which resulted in 800 plus customizations. There was a list of 700 odd pieces of work that were apparently not going to be delivered. This was a new management team had come into the programme and they were going to deliver this, so it just added further delay. Then, of course, there was COVID-19 once things had gone into production. So just after you've gone live, and the academic cycle works on a one-year cycle, so if you miss a window, you've probably got 12 months before the next one of a similar period. So COVID-19 happened just as things were starting to crystallise a little bit, so there was no real traction on improvement. So it was bad. It was really bad. Students were being told by some staff about this terrible programme. New students were hearing about it. They had no need to see or hear any of this. Some staff were clearly still very angry about the restructure, but quite simply, a number of people were feeling significant pain when they were trying to do relatively simple things to administer the student journey. So yeah, it was really bad. If you don't believe me, you'll find that on the Urban Dictionary. It wasn't posted by the VC. I think that's somebody's username. If you look at the date on there, March the 6th, 2021, I started my new job on the 12th of April. So that's what I was walking into. It was quite a challenging environment. I'm going to come clean here, though. I'd worked at the university previously. I'd left in 2017 to go and work at another institution. I saw this job advertised and thought, I'm a glutton for punishment. I'll have a go at that, and they were daft enough to engage me. So there was a turning point needed. I've often joked that my job was to stop the Vice-Chancellor's inbox catching fire, but the reality was we'd got academics who were saying that they could create a new student record system over the summer, which is quite something. We had lots and lots of people saying that they could do this better. I walked into a team who, some of these people had been working on this implementation for 7 or 8 years. They were on the verge of being burnt out, if not burnt out at all, entirely. So we had to change the narrative, and to do that we had to change the way we were working. This isn't about me, this is about a team of fantastic people who've come together to make a difference. So there was an executive decision late in 2020 which was guided by industry expertise. So our director of service design had worked in commercial industry previously, and he'd seen how agility could work. So he designed this team known as ESIT, Education Administration and Continuous Improvement Team, and that's the team that as I say, I'm very fortunate to lead. So what we'd got here was an old hierarchical organisation with lots of pain going on, a huge debt, well not a debt, but a huge bill for that implementation that had been so troublesome. Processes that weren't really working. And I walked into that and had to have some early conversations with the board. So the first one was, I know you were told you were going to get a load of things done by the beginning of the summer. That's not happening, because a very simple assessment had shown we hadn't got the capacity to deliver anywhere near what was sitting on the roadmap. The second one was a board meeting where I went and I said, we need to make sure we're not adding to the problem. Is anybody familiar with Homer's car from The Simpsons? Where Homer guides his brother's car company by adding bits to the car that creates something that is completely unworkable. I went to the board and I said, we really need to make sure we are not building Homer's car. A month later, I had to go to them and say, we've already built Homer's car, we need to start taking some bits off it. And that was genuinely the situation we were in. Those 840 customisations, I was speaking to another institution in the States who used the same system, and they were absolutely horrified at the amount of bespoking we had done to this solution. So that's where we were. That's the complexity that's the chaos that we were facing. So I'm going to walk you through our journey from there to now, and what that's actually done within the organisation. So some baby steps, focusing on the people first of all. Finishing the work in hand. So there were 68 pieces of work on that, what I loosely call a roadmap, in April 2021. They all needed to be delivered by mid-August because if you think back to that timeline I showed, there was an OCI bubble there and there was an upgrade bubble there, and they both had to be, they were being delivered in that year. I nearly stopped, didn't take the job when I heard that was happening, because I was like, we've got to do a transformation here in terms of complete ways of working, and we're doing upgrades. But anyway, we rationalised it down to 19 pieces of work, and that was traumatic enough getting those over the line. What we needed to then do was incubate our new ways of working, and that was challenging because as people rolled off from those 19 pieces of work, what we did was set up a team we called the incubator team, and the whole point of that was that they would take a little bit of a step back and they would start to develop our new ways of working, because we'd got roughly till Christmas for that upgrade to happen. There was a huge amount of user testing, etc., happening over that period of time. We got lucky because that upgrade was happening. I don't think we could have done it with everything in flight. I think we'd have been in serious trouble because we'd have had the whole organisation shouting at us whilst we're trying to pivot into a new way of working. So as people joined that incubator team, there were some things that we weren't prepared for. And one of the things that I certainly hadn't factored in was the fact that that wasn't going to be particularly successful. And the reason it wasn't was because there were quite a few tears. The tears for two reasons, really. One was, I mentioned burnout, and that was a real challenge. We're talking about people are being told about mindset and encouraged to change mindset and that sort of thing at a very point at which they are absolutely stressed to the limit. So that wasn't a great number of conversations. The other thing was we started talking about autonomy, and we started talking about how people could be self-managing, self-organising, all of those things that we recognise. Utterly terrifying to some people. They'd never not been micromanaged. So to say that we were going to suddenly say, join this team, create your new world, go and do what you need to do, was something they found really, really scary. And I really hadn't factored that into my thinking at all. So it was great in terms of we had a direction of travel and we had space, but we also had to take the organisation with us as well. So actually what happened during that incubation period was some people just took a breath. They hadn't had a chance to think and stop working and not doing 80-hour weeks for very many years in some cases. So we put people first, and then we thought, right, how do we actually make this happen? So what we started to do was put some of our stakeholders and their leadership team through some Agile training so we could talk the same language. And that really started to pay dividends. But some of the challenges that we faced, so I can remember at the end of one day of training where somebody, when it was any questions, a hand went up and it was, this has been brilliant. I really love this Agile stuff, the spaghetti and the blue tack and the string and the Lego and all of that had been brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But you've not said anything about performance management. How does that work? And it was like, okay, right. So you've listened to all the good stuff, but actually the mindset bit hasn't caught on at all. So, and those challenges still exist. There are parts of the organisation where agility is like oil and water. We're in a very different place. So, Agile framework. So we started off with the design and the ambition. We were designed and set up to work using Scrum. We had an Agile consultant in at the start, so he was there when I joined or shortly afterwards. He talked a lot about scaled Agile, he talked a lot about SAFe, he presented 60 slide or decks with 60 slides in. He clearly wasn't listening or learning about the organisation he was working in. I don't know whether any of you are contractors or consultants, but just a little tip. I've been both. I've been a contractor and a consultant. Just a little tip for you. don't share your 60-page copied and pasted slide deck on a screen with your customer at the very point when a little chat bubble pops up in the corner for a cutover team for another organisation. It doesn't end well. So it wasn't particularly good for the trust relationship. Internally, though, as a team, we were starting to work out what it was that we wanted to do. So we set off using Scrum. But over time, we've inspected and we've adapted our approach based on that lived experience. So the team started to tweak things, things that didn't quite work for them. Very little of our work, as you can probably guess, is actually greenfield. So I love coming here and listening to people who are working with what is effectively blank sheets of paper, because that's not where we are, not yet. We're getting there. We're fixing badly designed processes. We're fixing things that crash into each other and cause students, problems trying to buy graduation tickets and those kinds of things. But the team's been empowered through its lived experience to change method. So we've never been on an ideological journey. What we've actually done is used agility to bring us closer to our customers, work out what works for us so that we can then deliver. So over time, we've increased delivery year on year. The value released to the university has increased year on year. And there's no sign of demand dropping whatsoever. So, but I'm a strong believer, and it's quite interesting. It's the first time I've presented in a room with a grand piano. But I'm a firm believer with music and art, and I think agility to a degree as well, is you need to know the rules before you can effectively break them. And there's an underpinning level of knowledge that actually then allows you to say, okay, that bit's not working for us, but we're strong enough with it to know that if we go and do this, then that's going to make it happen for us. And that's really what we've been doing. So the frameworks have become a tool, not a doctrine. This is the right audience, isn't it? Is that brick going on or off? Are we adding something or taking it away? I don't know. You choose. But we've evolved very organically based on what works for us. So we don't actually use the term TAP. Carl put it in the slides, and I thought, I like that. Trust as a product. So what do? We engage our users really early and we keep them close. So that was part of the reason for engaging them in the Agile training. We as a team are now delivering Agile training. So in the early days, we were outsourcing that, and we've got a training provider who would come in and do that. We're now doing that for others because it's adapted to our needs. It's a university context. So we get close to people, we co-create with them, we engender that constructive challenge to try and build products that are wanted and needed. When our demand's through the roof as it is, it's important, we've discovered, to let people know what they're not getting as it is to let them know what they are getting. Because if they're not getting it, they can create the workarounds to fill the gap, or they can make sure their processes align. So we found that has been, again, an unexpected thing that we need to get our heads around, but actually it builds trust because we then have the open conversations that say, I know you wanted this, but actually we've got 10 other things that are more important to the whole university, so you're not getting it, basically. We've put a huge amount of effort into communication and engagement, and that's not broadcasting over the heads of people, that's actually boots on the ground, going into team meetings, going to faculty meetings, school meetings, those kinds of things, to go and talk to people, because often what we found is when we walked into a room, there's an advocate there. There's somebody who's already seen the good work we've done, so they're telling their peers about it. Whereas if we're just pushing out news articles, people are having to self-serve that, and a lot of it just goes straight over their heads. We've won 2 internal professional services awards, both for collaboration. So, as you can imagine, they're joint awards. It'd be a bit of a nonsense if they weren't joint awards. But we've won 2 of those. And we also picked up a Gartner Eye for Innovation for Education Runners-Up Award a couple of years ago for a value framework that we use to try and prioritise the massive amount of work that we have being fed into us from the university. Friday afternoon, dad joke alert, see if you're awake. What's that? Milk? Yeah, it's low churn. Oh, forget it. All right. God, it is Friday afternoon, isn't it? Okay. Actually, it's pretty much no churn. We've got a team that people want to work in. We've got other people messaging saying, if you've got any roles, can you give me a shout? Just a few quotes here, and actually the bottom one is from our previous registrar, so in effect one of the sort of 2 or 3 most senior people in the university. When he left last year, that was his parting email to me, which I think is just testament to the work the team's done to change that narrative. So lessons learnt, goose. The university is now looking at us as an exemplar. It wants more product teams. I still don't think we're quite a product team. I think we've got a long way to go, but we've got a really good foundation. But for other teams, or other parts of the university looking, saying we want some of that. They need to understand the journey, because there's no point leaping to the front there if you haven't done the hard yards. You've got to have walked there, and we've had to take the people with us, and without doing that, we'd have been in all sorts of trouble, I think. The other thing, agility reveals problems. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, but this is part of the contracting with people. When we're talking about working with them, you need some improvement, we'll come and work with you, but you need to be aware it's going to cause problems, or if there are problems, it's going to surface them very quickly, and that's got to be part of the deal. That yes, it will surface them, but we deal with them. No blame culture, we try and deal with it. And that has to be part of the deal, as I say. You can buy a house, you know, we can all go and get a book on Scrum or Kanban or whatever it is, and we can set it up. Doesn't mean the team's going to behave in the way that's necessary to actually make that function. And it does take time. We've had the luxury of time thanks to that upgrade, but now it's lived experience and reflective practice that's taking us forward. And also, we've discovered that the structure follows culture. It's not vice versa. So we can't... I heard somebody say several years ago that your culture stems from the worst behaviour you're prepared to accept. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, because actually that sets the baseline. And so we have changed the structure of the team based on how the culture is developing. So we're allowing people to do the best work. And again, that builds trust, not just within the team, but also beyond. So where are we going next? So we've got this vision to become a fusion team. So we want to be a team where... Is that on an automatic transition, or did I just move that? Oh, it is. Okay, right. So, fusion team, small guerrilla-type squads where we have business technologists coming in to work with us. They will use, in effect, I like to think of us as a docking station for them, because we can't possibly deliver everything the university needs. So what we're going to do is use what we've developed to try and make that journey a little shorter for others. So they come in, they soak up some of our culture, they soak up some of our expertise, they use our infrastructure as a team to allow them to come and solve their own problems. And that's the direction of travel. That's going to take a little bit of doing, but ultimately I'm hoping the outcome of that will be a little bit of viral scaling. Because there's no way I'm going to the Vice-Chancellor to say, this needs to become an Agile university. That's just a non-starter. But what we can do is influence from the ground up and show that if we can get people together, it's going to come in a moment. Next one, Future Nottingham's our current transformation programme, rooted in what the university needs to look like in the future. And this final bullet, viral scaling of approach. So what I want to do is us to get into some big room planning across the university where we're actually talking to each other, and we've taken dependencies out of spreadsheets between projects, and actually they're conversations on a regular basis. And that's the direction of travel. A few things that we need to keep in sight, though, whilst we're doing that. We need to recognise every implementation is unique, every team is unique, every team's culture is unique, and everybody's starting from different places. So we need to keep that in sight. The outcome is trust, though. Ultimately, trusting that people will either deliver what you need, or if they can't deliver what you need, will tell you that they can't deliver what you need, is a really strong output, because that makes the next engagement so much better. Culture change, you can't shortcut the culture change. It does It's taken three to 4 years to create the culture that we can now feel we can take into the rest of the university and try and influence the approach there. And agility needs permission to work. I needed the Director of Service Design to say, this is where we want you to take us to solve the problems that the university is facing around its student record system and the processes. So we needed that permission. But of course, that is really powerful, because actually, I said to you, I'd left the university in 2017. There was an information services department there that was kind of old-fashioned and whatever. When I came back in 2021, it was digital and technology services. It had a strong PMO. They had really progressed, and then they disrupted it by bringing in a product team to sit amongst it and actually break some of the rules. And I did actually ask our board, do you see us as a disruptor? And the answer was no. But we do push against the conventions within the department, and that is a challenge for everybody involved. But the one thing, if we are going to replicate what we're doing and we are going to be a exemplar, is that we can't use the cookie cutter approach. We have got to take it on a case-by-case basis in order to deliver greater outcomes and greater trust across the university. So, I'm hoping that as a performance story of our experience has been of interest on a Friday afternoon. Many of you are a long way from home. I know some of you are local, but thank you so much for staying. The stories are detailed narratives of the past. They include particulars about management action, changes in strategy, etc., and provide a plot for employees, because we can use this from this perspective to think about, okay, how do we then use our story to change things for the future? So I hope that's been of interest. I'm very happy to take questions. And as I said earlier, if it's terrible feedback, leave it for Carl. Thanks. Thank you.